tie the money up the way people are afraid, oh, I don't want to set up a trust because it's going to be tied up and we're not going to be able to use it, it's too complicated, it's, we're just going to handle it informally. It's really not the case. It really allows a lot of leeway. I've had clients who have had gastric abdominal surgery for weight loss. That's not covered by our public benefits, but the incredible improvement in this person's quality of life and actually their reduction in the need for public services was profound, because after losing 200 pounds, they were actually able to start doing more things and required less assistance. So these trusts and the funds in these trusts are really, really tremendous for our ill persons.
Okay. Now, how do you choose a trustee for something like this, for a special needs trust?
Oh, there you go with a really explosive question. How do you choose a trustee? Who's the right person? That's a really tough question, and each client who's setting up a trust needs to look very, very carefully at who they're selecting, not only as the initial trustee, but also who they're selecting as a backup trustee. Oftentimes, with my families with a disabled child, they would like to name the child's sibling as a trustee, and that could be okay, and many times that is okay, but many times that's also not okay, because what you do by naming the well child as the trustee over assets for the ill child is you are conflicting their relationship. They've gone from being sibling to being basically controlled and controllee. And so the person who was the sibling all of a sudden has power issues with the ill beneficiary, and they are burdened by having to take care of this person and be responsible for the money and responsible for what's going on. So there are certainly many situations where that is not advisable. There are also many situations where that's just fine. When you're choosing a trustee, you're looking for somebody who is trustworthy. There you go, the first one. Somebody that has a good sense of finances. And in this situation, if we can have an individual as the trustee, and we may not, you may need a corporate trustee or a private professional fiduciary to step in. But if you have an individual, you want to look at that person's relationship with the beneficiary and see whether or not it's going to be an effective relationship once they're appointed as trustee. So the trustee is actually charged with managing the assets and making decisions about how the money is spent and what items are purchased and paid for the beneficiary. And oftentimes the person who's selected, again, we're looking for somebody who can manage finances well. That person might not be actively involved in the beneficiary's life and might not be aware of the types of things that might help the beneficiary or that the beneficiary might need. So oftentimes in these trusts, in my special needs trust, there's what's called a trustee advisory committee. And the trustee advisory committee is set up to have maybe a physician, a social worker, another sibling of the beneficiary, people who are actively involved in the care of and the life of the beneficiary, who know what services are available that might be beneficial. And the trustee consults with the advisory committee about what should be done on behalf of the beneficiary.
Okay. Now, what about caseworkers? That's another choice as well, isn't that right?
Caseworkers, in my experience, are not particularly interested in serving as the trustee.
Well, it's more, I'm just saying they would be more advising related.
Yes, they're fabulous. You may
have different people that are involved in the actual care. It's like sometimes you may have a conservator of the person that's separate from the conservator of the estate.
Exactly.
So we may have the same sort of thing in this sort of a scenario.
Exactly. And these are particularly important where the disabled person has limited communication ability. So maybe for my severely autistic beneficiary or somebody who is aphasic, unable to speak, these people need extra protection. They're not able to speak up for themselves. So that trustee advisory committee becomes particularly critical in being able to relay the beneficiary's needs to the trustee.
Okay. Now, is anybody else well, I guess that's sort of what we were covering, is this trust advisory committee and so forth. Maybe we move on. Any other options available for managing assets for a special needs person besides the special needs trust, or just the, giving it to a brother or sister?
Well, other options besides giving it to the brother or the sister, or, well, you could just not leave that person anything, for example.
Now, we talked about
But
the idea of a pooled trust or something like that? Or?
A pooled trust is an option. We don't use them very much in California, if at all. We don't use them very much at my office. They only come up on very rare occasions. They're typically, in my opinion, best for situations where I have a very, very small amount of money that needs to be set aside for this disabled person so that they can continue to receive their benefits, and where I don't have a good option for selecting a trustee to manage that money individually.
Okay.
In that case, they might utilize a pooled trust where the funds come in and are managed with funds from other trust sources.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we just have maybe, I don't know, less than a minute left. Do you have maybe some final words of wisdom related to special needs trust?
They are so critical to have them set up properly. I highly, highly advise anybody who has a disabled family member that they might be leaving money to work with their attorneys, their estate planning attorneys, and have any assets that might go to that disabled person be set up in a special needs trust. When I have to step in after the fact, when somebody has passed away and they haven't set up a special needs trust, it costs maybe 10 times as much to set it up after the fact, and it's never as good as it could have been done. It's never as protective as if the parents or the person had set it up ahead of time.
Okay.
So it's much better to do it. It leaves so much more money available for the disabled person, and that's what we're looking to do.
Okay, thanks again, Naomi. Thanks for being my guest today, and I'm looking forward to getting together with you on another occasion.
Thanks, Mike.
And folks, now you have a little bit of information about this. Most of us these days, there may be a family member, a child in your family that's in this situation, or so many of us with senior parents that may need this type of protection. So just be aware that this is an option, and to see an attorney that's familiar with this when you have to deal with it. And anyway, I hope this has been valuable to you, and I hope to see you again next time on Financial Insider Weekly.